Are you truly stepping into the role of leader in your own life the way you know you're meant to? What shifts would unlock your full potential? It's time to explore those answers with the host of Sacred Leadership, intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander.
Welcome to another episode of Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network. My name, of course, is Sherisse Alexander, your host here today, and I am joined by Pat Welsh, where today we are talking about warriors, servants, and leaders, and how do we show up as leaders rooted in faith in a high pressure world. In high pressure environments where results matter and the cost of failure is real, how do leaders stay anchored in faith without losing their edge? In today's episode, myself and Pat will be chatting about what it means to lead as both a warrior and a servant, integrating spiritual conviction, resilience, humility, and courage in demanding leadership spaces. Today's conversation explores faith-rooted decision-making, inner discipline, and the sacred responsibility of leadership when the stakes are high, and the path is quite unclear. Pat Welsh is the founder and president of PJ Welsh and Associates LLC, which has dedicated his life to serving and leading in the criminal justice arena. With over 40 years of experience as a lawyer, police executive, nationally recognized speaker, and trainer, Pat has worked tirelessly to help law enforcement professionals and corporate clients develop and implement leadership strategies that empower them to protect with courage, serve with humility, and lead with compassion. So thank you so much, Pat, for joining me here today on the show Sacred Leadership with Sherisse, where I'm always interested in talking to people that walk the walk and find ways that they can genuinely show up rooted in their faith in really challenging environments where our integrity might be challenged, our morals, our values, these things. So welcome and thank you for joining me here today. Please share with us a little bit more about yourself, your journey, and how did you get where you are right now?
Well, the journey actually began in 1957. I was born in Dublin, Ireland, and when I was 3 days old, my birth mother was a widow, and I was put in an orphanage. And a year and a half later, I got adopted to the United States, and that was the springboard, if you will, because I learned the verse in Jeremiah. I knew you before you were conceived, and dedicated you before you were born. And my journey was a little weird, and I was the only 5.5-year-old that had to go to federal court and become a U.S. citizen. So I always knew that I was different in a way, and that just kind of grew as I got older, and we were, and still am, a very devout practicing Catholic. And I never even went to public school. I've been in the Catholic school system from first grade all the way through law school. So I was constantly being immersed in faith and being, how you deal with being tested and challenges and all sorts of things. And I ended up going to law school because everybody said, "Oh, Pat, you'll be a great lawyer." And I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to be in law enforcement since I was like 8 or 9 years old. And so I was assistant DA for 4 years. And one evening I came home from work, and my wife's like, you're always in a bad mood. What do you really want to be doing? And I said, "I want to be a police officer." And she says, "Well, then go do it." And so I did. We're coming up on our 46th wedding anniversary later this year. And, that's the path I took. That was my vocation. That was my calling, to serve God and where he wanted me at. I still kept my license active, and I still practiced law on the side, helping people instead of just shuffling papers. And here I am, 68 years later, and still in the arena. Now I spend all my time helping and giving back by training, and giving keynote speeches and stuff and consulting.
I love that. And congratulations on your many, many years of
You.
marriage. I know what a commitment that is. When did you first feel like, so, based on your story and what you've just covered, you have always had an interest in being in law enforcement, which in a lot of ways is a very leadership driven or can be a leadership driven type of role. But I guess you're saying what did you say five? From the time you were just a little young lad, you
Yeah.
wanted to be involved in law enforcement in some way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was 5 or 6, and then definitely by 9 years old, I was just like I was all in for doing it. But I don't know, I'm genetically wired and spiritually gifted with the to be able to talk to people and think on my feet, and I mean the first keynote I gave, I was 17 years old. It was in Houston, Texas, and I don't know, there's 1,000 people in the audience. And that's
Geez.
a gift. That's a gift that God gave me. And everybody just kept telling me, "Oh, Pat, you're going to make a great lawyer." So I just assumed, okay, I'm supposed to be a lawyer, and put the whole law enforcement idea on the side burner, or actually, it wasn't even on the stove. And uh, but then when I was 28 years old, that's when I had that. My wife recognized it. She had that gift of discernment that you're not happy, and what do you want to be doing? And so that's how I ended up making the transition.
So I wonder now, like, after you made the transition, because, sometimes we get the messages, I don't want to say wrong,
Hmm.
but that discernment piece, right? And I was recently going through this myself where it was like, I was trying to make a decision about something that I wanted to do. And even in my own discernment and in my own connection with the divine, it was like, I felt like I got to go ahead.
Hmm.
But then I was getting stalled within that. So then I took like a step back and I was like, okay, I don't feel like I got the go ahead wrong. But I think what I got wrong in that discernment piece was take the road, but not the vehicle. So when you look back on your own journey, do you feel like, yeah, you had to go down that road of being a lawyer, or did you feel like at any point, like, I was supposed to go the road, but maybe not in that vehicle, and not even from a regret piece, because I don't think that there
Uh,
really are ever any wrong decisions. I think making those decisions that maybe take us down unpleasant paths sometimes bring us exactly or give us the necessary experience to come back to where we're supposed to be. But did you think at any point or even now in your journey that that discernment piece that you talk about, it's like getting the message right, which I think sometimes is so tricky when you are working through this spiritual language, for lack of putting it a better way.
yeah, I ki- I kind of call it a mild Saul slash Paul experience. That Saul thought he was on the right path, uh, and he was smart, he was gifted, all those kinds of things, and he was on the right path and persecuting Christians, and then he literally got knocked down. Uh, some say off a horse, but whatever. He was blinded, and God got his attention. Christ spoke to him, which is why he could be called an apostle. So I kind of had a mild version of that. Is I thought I was on the right track. I was gifted. I was using my gifts because, and it was natural, and
Mm.
I just wasn't uh, happy and about what I was doing. And my Paul moment was through my wife going, Pat, what's going on? You're not happy. Let's talk about it. And I liken it to this. So we'd been married at that point 6 years. We had 2 kids, and I liken it to when I asked my wife to marry me. She actually said, "Well, give me a couple days to pray about it." And because that emotion, if you're making decisions based on the
Mhm.
emotion, or oh, this sounds like a really fun thing to do, or whatever, and it's not in God's plan, that prayer time is important. And I will readily admit, I never prayed about going to law school and being a lawyer. I just assumed
Mm.
that was, and I graduated from high school. I was 17, and I was barely 21 when I started law school. And it was always expected and encouraged, so I just assumed, well, this is, God's direction for me because everybody's telling me I'm going to be good at it. And I
Mm.
was good at it, but I didn't like it. So, like you say, that vehicle, and I was a prosecutor, so I was still staying, by going into law enforcement, I was just doing it literally from the other side of the table, being on the
Hmm.
witness stand instead of being the lawyer asking the questions. And there were so many times in my career that I saw God working. I mean, constantly. There was other times I had some Job experiences as well throughout my career and in our personal lives. But the consistency, the one verse that has kept my wife and I extremely grounded is "Be still and know that I am God." And especially in those Job kind of moments and experiences, and we've had several of those. So I just trust God is God and I am not, and I know the beginning and I know where I'm presently at in my journey and story. God knows the ending and where He wants me to be when I'm needed to be where I'm called to be. So it's
Hmm.
I don't I guess I in a way I guess I'm not really I'm not a doubting Thomas. I have not had a doubting Thomas experience. We've had some Job
Hmm.
experiences, and we've had some Saul and occasional other challenges and obstacles, but I've never had a doubting Thomas experience.
And I love that. And I think especially when we talk about how faith looks in the realm of leadership. And I think that for a long time, maybe even presently today, I think sometimes that idea of leadership is confused, maybe not confused, but that it has to be, in a place of authority over other people, big
Hmm.
organizations and institutions. And really what the purpose of this podcast is to really help people see how this that you're talking about, right? Faith and spirituality and how this deep personal inner work, how these things are all intertwined, how they
Hmm.
really, really help us show up as leaders. And you just said you've never been the doubting Thomas kind, which means to me, you've always relied on your faith. It is always, even in the darkest of the dark and the heaviest of the heavy, you were always able to like just know that there was always a bigger plan. So for folks that are, we'll say, new to this in
Hmm.
whatever phase of their journey they're on. I think part of the toughest thing with something like spirituality, which is not linear, it is confounding and confusing and can sometimes be very frustrating because we want all the answers and we don't get all the answers, right? You said it yourself. I know the beginning, I know where I am presently, and God knows the rest. What would be maybe the first thing that you would say to someone that is trying to learn how to lean on something you can't see,
Hmm.
always touch, smell, know very much with your physical senses?
Well, I would start with it's a couple of things. One, you have to understand, and it's okay um, that this type of response, whenever in our human existence, when we face challenges, we face obstacles, or even opportunities, that our initial response to those circumstances is almost 100% of the time is emotional, and it's the classic. You either run, you have fear, which I call forget everything and run. So you have that flight response. I don't want to be here. Maybe it's a difficult relationship or whatever, and you're just going to close in and emotionally run from what's going on in your life. So we call that the flight response. The other one
Mm.
is you freeze. It's just like, oh my God, what's going on? I don't know what to do. And you're confused and you just freeze in your emotional, spiritual, psychological sense. And then the other one is you come out swinging, and you're angry, you're mad, you're disappointed, you're whatever, but you come out and you want to fight. And everybody thinks those are the only three responses because that's what we've been taught. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
psychology 101, all that
Yep.
kind of stuff. When in reality, there is a fourth option, and that is to basically take a deep breath and then intentionally what, and I don't mean that you suppress your emotions. You know, someone dies, you're still going to cry.
Mm-hmm.
You have those Job kind of moments. You're going to have an emotional um, initial response, but you don't have to react by an emotion. And I call it just basically intentionally uh, responding and reacting. And I use and then this is where, okay, what's that look like? How do you do that? What do you do? And I actually had this laminated. It was on my door when I was a sergeant and a lieutenant, and when I retired, I was a superintendent of operations of a large agency. And this was on my door, so everybody knew this is how I thought, and this is what
Mm-hmm.
I expected. Is these four things: is what's the right thing to do, what's the right time to do it, what's the right way to do it, and what are the right reasons for doing it.
Mm.
And so that keeps you grounded. I
Yeah.
call it, that's kind of the moral compass, if you will, the ethical. And then scripturally, I tell people, uh, go to Matthew, read the Beatitudes. You know, uh, it, that whole um, those, I call it the four R's: right thing, right time, right way, right reasons. And don't overanalyze things, but be confident in knowing that God has the right path for you. God will, if you, what's the old saying is, whatever you're looking for, you always find more of it. And, scripturally, knock and it will be open, seek and you will find, ask and it will be answered. And if we have that mindset,
Yeah.
as opposed to uh, run, freeze, or fight. But that no, there is a right way to handle this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that in the little things, I mean, as simple as like when we go to our parish, we have 2,600 families. That's
Yeah.
10,000 people.
Yeah.
And so when we have five masses, on Sunday. Well, when my wife and I get there and we're, walking up to the church and there's other people behind us, as simple as I'm going to stand there and hold the door open and let people come in because that's
Mm-hmm.
the right thing to do, the right way, the right time, the right reasons. And you do that in the little things,
Mm.
then you can be trusted and confident in doing it in the big things. So when you have those challenges, you have those doubts, or you're trying to figure out how do I navigate this new journey I'm on because I wasn't raised in the church, so to speak, or I'm new to
Yeah.
faith, or maybe you were agnostic or atheist, or just lazy, complacent in your faith, but now you've hit a point where you're having that transformation.
Yeah.
Is ask yourself those four questions every time you face something and you go, man, I don't know what to do. Then just go, well, and or ask somebody else, have a mentor, have a coach, have a faith partner, or if you come out of the military, you have a battle buddy, and ask those questions and talk it out. I mean, that's the doubting Thomas. Yeah, it's all right to be. I've just never had that experience, but it's okay to have your doubts. Read about the saints in the Christian faith. You take Mother Teresa of Calcutta. If you read about her, she had a very close inner circle, but she shared many times that she
Yeah.
doubted, am I doing the
Mm.
right things? And
Yeah.
and that's okay. Uh, But what's not okay is if you were raised with "suck it up, Buttercup." Keep it to yourself, or if you want it done right, do it yourself. That's ego, and that's not of God.
I want to dive into this a little bit more just to make it even more practical. But we're going to go to our first break. And when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit more about the practicality of what you're talking about. We will be right back.
Leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or world leaders. It's something each of us is called to embody in our own lives. But how do you awaken that inner leader with clarity and confidence? On Sacred Leadership with intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander, you'll discover powerful tools and spiritual insights to align your words, actions, and outcomes. Tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific, right here on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Sacred Leadership with Sherisse Alexander. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Sherisse@pavitraleadership.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network, where I am joined today by Pat Welsh, and we are talking about warrior, servant leader, faith-rooted leadership in high-pressure worlds. And right before we went to break, Pat and I were chatting about the leaders who might just be at the very beginning of their faith journey and trying to build that muscle of trust with God and the divine. And Pat, right before break, you talked about the 4 R's, which are, give them to me again.
Do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons.
Right. And you said when we begin to practice that in the small things, it becomes even easier in the big things. Now, I suppose, I don't know about you, but I know for myself that sometimes along this journey, we get really caught up in when and how, right? You ask for something. And I often say to people, I'm like, when you ask, the answer is given to you, but it's almost like training yourself to look for it, right? Because we don't often get it in the way that we expect. What would be your comment around that, right? Whatever it is that you might put out there that you're asking for, and we already have this preconceived notion in our very tiny experience of what that thing is going to look like. How do we begin to expand what that awareness looks like?
The easiest way for me to comprehend a lot of the scriptural promises and growing in faith and whatnot is to step back and actually compare it to, you were once a child and had parents. Did you always get everything that you wanted? You would ask, and sometimes the answer was yes, sometimes the answer was no, sometimes the answer was, well, it depends, or we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And that's our human existence, if you will, because your parents are you're a little kid and you want your first bike. And maybe mom and dad can't afford it right now, or there's circumstances, or it may be they realize you're not ready for that adventure.
Yeah.
That whatever it might be. If you think of your relationship with God is not any different, or not, it's not unlike your relationship with your parents. And we as we grow older, we gain greater wisdom and understanding. So even though you are biologically an adult right now, but you're in the infancy of your faith experience, your parents, when you learned to walk, you fell more times than you took steps at the beginning, and they were there to catch you, and they were there to encourage you, but they weren't there to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of growing in our faith is the same way. As there is no, it's not a light switch where, oh, okay, I just suddenly, oh, now I'm a Christian, and things are going to be better. I'm not going to have struggle, and all these. Yes, you are. And what Christ says, he says daily, deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. Well, the cross, it's not a physical cross, but it is burdens, it is challenges, it is responsibility. Your cross could be, uh, take the servant. For me, the definition of a servant is put the wants and needs of others before your own.
Yeah.
And if you're a parent, you know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And even at your own expense, you have to put the wants and needs of others before your own.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know what the outcome of picking up that cross and following Christ, and Christ is telling you to do the right things at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons. He didn't condemn people. Your sins are forgiven, or the lady at the well, or the lady that they were gonna stone her, and he bends down and whatever he writes in the sand, in the dirt, and then they all leave, and then he turns to her and says, "Sin no more." He didn't give her oh, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, and if you do this, this will happen. He didn't give her an instruction book. He just said, "Sin no more."
Yeah.
And so that's why daily you have to pick up that cross and follow Christ. So there's no training manual. I mean, there is in that there's
I
scripture,
know. Yeah.
but there's no, well, like you said, it's not linear. If
Yeah.
one equals two, that's linear. But I confess Christ as my Savior. That does not. There's not another thing that follows that life's going to be perfect.
Yeah, and I think that that's often, and especially for leaders, right? Like that's where, and when I say leaders, I want to say what I would define as traditional leaders in my mind, right? And traditional leaders in my mind are very, and I could be wrong, so for whoever's listening, please don't be offended by the way that I'm putting this, but that it has to be linear, that it's 1 + 1 = 2, that there's a manual, and we have some flexibility within there, but leadership looks a very specific way. And hence the reason, because I was talking to someone, I think maybe about a week ago, and is a leader, and they were grappling with something. And I said to them, I said, well, did you pray on it?
Mm.
You might not have the answer because your conscious mind is so wrapped up in all of the challenges that you're faced with when you're awake. Just maybe pray on it. And this person's a dreamer. So I said, just pray on it, ask for it in a dream, ask to remember it when you wake up, and maybe just take a step back from it so that you can zoom out and really see. Now, I don't know if this person did or not, but I mean, to me, it seems like, it's that whole ask and you shall receive, right? I'm so busy in doing it the way that I think it needs to be done as a leader that sometimes we forget that we don't actually have to carry the cross that you talk about. I don't think we're meant to carry the cross that you speak of by ourselves. Sometimes I think we're actually, I think, daily supposed to invite God into the experience and walk that with us. And I think that, again, coming back to what the purpose of this podcast is and having guests like yourself on is, how do we begin to interweave all those things so that they don't feel so separate? And we're going to go to break here, but here's something I want you to consider. We talk about warrior, servant, and leader in this high pressure world. When we come back from break, I'd love for you to share with me what those three things mean to you. How does that look in the context of the discussion of leaders today? We will be right back.
Leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or world leaders. It's something each of us is called to embody in our own lives. But how do you awaken that inner leader with clarity and confidence? On Sacred Leadership with intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander, you'll discover powerful tools and spiritual insights to align your words, actions, and outcomes. Tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific, right here on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is Sacred Leadership with Sherisse Alexander. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Sherisse@pavitraleadership.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network, where I am joined today by Pat Welsh, and we are talking about warrior, servant, and leader, faith-rooted leadership in high-pressure worlds. And right before we went to break, I was actually asking Pat what that means to him in the context of leadership and faith. So, Pat, warrior, servant, and leadership. What do those three things mean to you?
Well, my definition of a warrior is a person that simply stands up, shows up, and defends what they believe. That's the warrior mindset. Whether faith, family, job, whatever it is that you believe in, a warrior stands up, shows up, and defends that. I'll give you a quick example. Your kid comes home from school and says they're being bullied. What's mama turn into? Mama bear. Yeah.
Legit.
Yeah.
You want me to come in that school?
Yeah. And that's standing up, showing up, standing up and defending what you believe. And that's not about, I was in law enforcement. I had a lot of friends in the military. It's not about bars, stars, and stripes. It's not a position. It's a mindset. The servant mindset, which I said earlier, you put the wants and needs of others before your own. And then finally, a leader for me is it's very simplistic because it's applicable whether you're in first grade or you're retired. If a leader is a person that is a positive influence and impact in the lives of the people they meet, that's leadership. You're impacting and influencing in a positive way other people's lives, because in their eyes, you're leading them by being that person of impact. And one of the biggest dangers in leadership is if you were raised with that mindset, if you want it done right, do it yourself. And there's a fine line between leading by example and doing somebody else's job for them in the corporate world. That you don't delegate. You're that micromanager because you're afraid of failure. Or if they fail, if I tell them here's their assignment and they don't do it, that makes me look bad to my boss. And that is so egocentric, that's so self-centered mindset that a leader doesn't have that type of mindset. Their mindset is, I want to be a person of influence and impact. Some of the greatest football coaches in the history of professional football were guys who it wasn't all about winning, like Vince Lombardi, Green Bay Packers, his famous quote, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Well, that's not a leadership. And I can tell you that the three coaches in the history of the NFL who have turned out more future head coaches than anybody else. And that's leadership, because they were about, yeah, we want to win, but I want to grow future head coaches who carry on the legacy of this organization or the sport, or whatever. It's not simply about winning games and winning the Super Bowl. So those are my definitions.
And I'm so glad you said that. I was having this conversation with someone. It's so crazy how all this content just comes to me on the day that we're having these conversations. But I was talking to a colleague, and I was saying the same thing. I hate micromanaging. I hate it. In fact, I was talking to someone today, and I said, listen, I want to be able to trust you enough. Like, I think my job as a leader is not to micromanage you. My job is to trust you. Like, yes, give you the parameters of what it is that we need as an organization. But how demoralizing is it for me to say to you as a leader that I don't trust that you as an adult are capable of doing the right thing? If I've clearly outlined what needs to happen, and I give you the tools and the resources and the support and all those things, I do not want to spend my days running after you, telling you what to do and making sure that you're getting it done. Like, that's not the kind of leader that I want to be. In fact, if anything, I think what I'm telling people constantly is, like, I want to empower you to know that you're totally competent and capable of making decisions. Are you going to get it right 100% of the time? No, because nobody does. But I want you to have the confidence to be able to, like, make the decision, be okay if it's not perfect, celebrate you when you're doing amazing and you make the right decision, and also equally sit with you and talk through where we could have maybe, what did we learn from that experience? So how do we get leaders to understand that it's okay? And I recently had another guest that was saying pretty well the exact same thing that you're doing, which is about really making it okay, or trusting our people to make those mistakes, and showing them that it's totally human to do that, and that it just totally empowers them and gives them this confidence to, like, actually begin to learn to lead. How do we do that?
That's a great question, and we start with ourselves. Here's the kind of fundamental condition of human existence. It doesn't matter where you're at in the world, ethnicity, nationality, religion, faith, anything. Fundamentally, there's four things we all want and need. We want safety, we want security, we want prosperity, and we want control. The one that's the biggest devil in all that is control.
Yeah, it's a fallacy.
So that, from a leadership standpoint, to not fall into that trap of micromanaging, which I call, you're just the boss. I got to do what you tell me to do because you're the boss. But within ourselves, we have to recognize in ourselves and do that self-assessment. When I react in that boss mindset, I'm telling somebody what to do and how to do it, and I'm micromanaging. Do that self-assessment. Why am I doing that? And what is their threat to my safety, security, prosperity, or control? And then park that ego at the door. A great book. Read "Ego is the Enemy" by Ryan Holiday. And so we start with ourselves. You want to be a better leader, then do a better. Instead of being critical of the people that you're leading, is sit down and have that frank assessment of yourself. And there's plenty of self-assessment tools out there. I don't recommend doing it on your own, because you won't be honest with yourself in that process. But get a mentor, get a coach, or have a very structured system in place for yourself to do that self-analysis. And we do the best time we do that is in quiet time. You can't go, I'll get around to that. No, specifically set aside time in your day, every day, to start. Here's how I do it. In the morning, I don't jump on, scroll the news or LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. I go to an app on my phone that highlights some saints of the day, and I read about, and it's short. I take 5 minutes type deal. Is I read about someone who came before me, and we consider them to be a saint. And it's the good, the bad, the ugly is in tells you about them. And then I can go and then I read the scripture verse, the scripture readings for that day for the Catholic Mass. And I'm starting my day off with that consistent God first and message and word to start my day off. And you learn some fascinating things. There's a kid that was just made a saint last year in the Catholic Church, born in 1991, died in 2006 from leukemia, from Milan, Italy. And his name is Carlo Acutis, 15 years old. And this was an insight this 15-year-old had. We're all born unique, but sadly, many of us die a photocopy of somebody or something else. And so, but if you're studying and reading about those people and their struggles, I mean, he died of leukemia. You look at that, you get encouragement, you grow spiritually, you grow emotionally, compassion, empathy, all those kinds of things, and that becomes your habit. And instead of you're driving, I do it all the time now. I didn't used to be this way. You cut me off on the highway, you got the one finger wave, or I'd lay on my horn or something. I would react very emotionally, very unchristian like, until I started going, somebody shared with me, will create the habits you want to live. And so that's what I started doing. So now when somebody cuts me off, I don't give them a full, hand wave. I just back off and go, they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
And then my blood pressure doesn't go up, kind of deal. So that's when I say that if you, and it's scripturally based, that if you be trusted with the little things, you could be trusted with the great things. I've kind of morphed that into if you can consistently do the little things the right way at the right time for the right reasons, then the bigger challenges, even opportunities. You get a job offer to oh man, I'm going to make so much more money, but you got to move across the country, and your kids who have their friends in their schools, all those other things. This may be great for you, but ask yourself, how is it going to be great for my family? And, that it may very well be, the devil tempting you to go after the shiny object. So I'm a simple kind of guy. I just I like to keep things like, simple and even in the complex, you can still break it down to, okay, there's some just fundamental things that I got questions I got to ask and answer.
Yeah. I love that you're really relating this in ways that are, and thank you so much for being so authentic with saying, you haven't always been like this, and that you used to be reactive and, give in to the emotions of road rage when somebody cuts you off. Because I think that sometimes, when you begin to walk this journey very intentionally in partnership with God, that sometimes maybe people feel like there's this righteousness that comes along with it. And I try very much on, at least this platform to say, like, I do not get it right every day. I am still very human. I struggle with these things, whatever they might be. So thank you very much for sharing that piece, and also for making it so digestible for the audience today in terms of, how we can begin to show up in the ways that we desire it, because it's a practice. It's not, it's as you said, it's not like you, commit yourself to God, and then wake up one day and it's just like everything is so easy and there's rainbows and all this. Like, it's certainly not that. I think the way that I look at it is I just have this sense that, like, I'm not doing this by myself. And that there's so much comfort in knowing that I'm not doing it by myself, that I've got, my God with me, and then all the different ways that what I'm asking for comes to me through other people, and that practice of, like, not needing to know when and not needing to know how, but just trusting that it'll come to me in the right time, right? So we will continue to talk more about being a warrior, a servant in high pressure worlds, or in the high pressure world that we live in today, when we come back from this break. We will be right back.
Leadership isn't reserved for CEOs or world leaders. It's something each of us is called to embody in our own lives. But how do you awaken that inner leader with clarity and confidence? On Sacred Leadership with intuitive business coach Sherisse Alexander, you'll discover powerful tools and spiritual insights to align your words, actions, and outcomes. Tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific, right here on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Sacred Leadership with Sherisse Alexander. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Sherisse@pavitraleadership.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse here on the Inspired Choices Network. If you are enjoying the content that I am bringing every single week, then please find me on your favorite platform and give me a 5-star review. If you have questions, or you want to be a guest, or you have content ideas, please send me an email at Sherisse, Sherisse, @pavitraleadership.com. As I said, welcome everyone back to Sacred Leadership with Sherisse, where I'm joined today with Pat Welsh, and we are talking about being a leader in high pressure environments and bearing in mind what it is to be a warrior, a servant, and a leader in these high pressure environments. So, Pat, right before break, we were talking about, where I was going with this question is, like, I think what I was trying to get at, you said, one of the things you'd said is that you weren't always like this. Right? You had to learn how to show up as the leader that you really wanted to be first, and that it was a practice and it took time in the little things. And I guess where I wanted to go with that is, what do you think today, what do you think the world needs more of in terms of leaders? What kind of leader does this moment in history require? I think that's how I would phrase it.
Wow. That's a great question. Very deep. I think we need leaders who are first fundamentally grounded in the knowledge and the reality is you can't do anything without God. And one of the worst books my mom made me read back in the 70s. She didn't realize it was a bad book, but it was "I'm Okay, You're Okay" was the name of the book. And I think our leaders have sacrificed to compromise. Chris Voss has written a great book called Never Split the Difference. And we have gone so overboard on I don't want to say this wrongly. We've gone so overboard on being complacent about people whose lives are headed for destruction, that we do Kermit the Frog, that meme, drinking that limited tea, it's none of my business. I'm okay, you're okay. We can all coexist, and all these things, and we have abdicated our responsibilities to the moral absolutes that God has written in Scripture and has called us to be. And so I think we need leaders that will return to actually the warrior mindset of, I'm going to stand up, show up, and defend what I believe. and that includes our values, it includes our faith, and it's not hatred, it's even Christ got righteously indignant and flipped some tables and did some yelling in the temple because of the desecration that was going on. And he didn't stand back and go, well, that's okay. We can all just get along. So that's why I say this is a deep question. Again,
It is.
I'm coming across kind of strong, but I firmly believe that if someone attacks my faith, and I'm going, no, I'm being compassionate and I'm being loving. What would we call it back in the day? Tough love. That's what we're losing in leadership is everybody's taking the lazy river ride. Hey, let's just float along and things get better. And I think that's wrong. And particularly for people of faith, to not stand up and defend their beliefs. I don't know. This might be going off the rails, but that's my thought. Yeah, that's my honest answer to the question. We need leaders that actually have a spine and will stand on their faith in Scripture and defend it.
That brings up a really interesting topic, and we definitely don't have enough time to talk about it today. And I think that it's important to, I don't want to say tie this up tidy, but I can see you're uncomfortable. And the point, and it's not, I think what the point you're trying to say, the word that comes to mind is conviction. And that's what we've lost is the conviction. And I don't love using absolutes like right or wrong. I like to use words like alignment, in alignment with what our true nature is on a soul level. And I think that what you're talking about is the result of being apathetic and just kind of going along. And that's really what you're saying at the end of the day. It's not about being righteous. It's about taking this attitude, this very laissez-faire, hands-off attitude that, and it has nothing to do with being judgmental. It has zero to do with that. That's not what we're talking about here. We see injustices every single day in the street, and people don't want to get involved. They don't want to stand up for it. They don't want to, say the wrong thing or offend people. And that's really what you're talking about. And you're saying, I don't care about my fellow human is really what you're talking about, is that energy of I don't care because it's none of my business. And that is what I think that you're really talking about. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah. It's like Christ. He didn't hate the sinner. He hated their sin and their behavior, and he still loved and embraced them and told them, don't sin anymore. He didn't, condemn them. He didn't cancel them. That kind of cancel culture that we've experienced over the last 10 years or so. So yeah, you said it much better than I did.
But I think that with that, it's like, and I was having this conversation with somebody today, and I got really, really passionate about it because we definitely don't have enough time. I got a minute and a half. But to wrap it up, we were talking about witnessing people who are, we'll say, they're prostituting themselves. And I said, there's a prostitute in every one of us, right? Potentially. I said, the question you have to really pose, and this is what I would pose, is what of yourself are you giving up for what you feel you need for survival? So it's not about the act itself. It's the deeper question than that, and why, right? So if we look at your traditional idea of what a prostitute is, she or he is somebody that sells of themselves in trade-off for survival. And there's a piece of that in every single one of us potentially. And so this is where the judgment piece comes in, right? I said, you don't know what you're willing to do when your back is up against the wall. So it's really, really easy for us to make those judgments. But anyways, thank you so much, Pat. I'm going to have you back because we didn't even get into it, and I want to get into it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sacred Leadership Show. Sherisse returns Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, continue taking small steps today to be a leader in your life for the collective. Continue taking small steps today to be a leader in your life for the collective.